actually anybody. I don't want to see anybody going through this. So getting the information out there is so important to me, and it makes it's like when I see someone click or someone who's been in it, and they're like, I didn't realize that that's what was happening. Or I talk to people who I used to go to high school with and say, where were you at when I was in high school? Because I was in an abusive relationship, and no one talked about it back then.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Ignition Path podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Goodknight, and I've got a great guest for us to listen to today and hear all about her story. Heartbreaking, yet very, very motivating, how she's come on the backside of this, and she's built an entrepreneurial business around it. So she's taken a tragedy and built a success out of it. And I can't wait to introduce you to Meg. She is with Dating Tips by Meg. And Meg, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us all about, I guess, start from the beginning, just a little bit, like give us, maybe not all the details, because I've heard some of the details because I heard you on another podcast, and it's shocking. So I will tell people, let me do this disclaimer, because I do this with mental health stuff, is this episode may have some triggers, and just know if this episode does trigger anybody that's listening to a place where they're not comfortable, please stop and please reach out to your support network and get some help if you can. So go ahead, Meg, tell us all about yourself and start from the beginning.
All right, thanks, Kyle. Well, beginning here, you go and find someone that you're getting ready to date. 2013, I met someone, decided work. I worked with this person, started dating very quickly. Things got crazy. I guess you'd say it was kind of a love bombing relationship in the beginning, very romantic, very going traveling, doing a lot of fun things. Some things I was lacking in my previous relationship. So definitely was like, you filled that gap just perfectly. But by month 6, and I didn't see all the stuff leading up to it. There's a lot of things that made you feel uncomfortable in the relationship already. But by month 6, he had installed cameras in my cars and GPS trackers, put spyware or stalkerware, is what I guess the correct term here, on computer and my phone. So seeing messages before I was seeing messages. And one night he saw a message about someone who it wasn't really identified in my phone. And that was the first night he physically assaulted me. And I was only 6 months into the relationship. And so that was the first time I actually recognized that the relationship was an abusive relationship. From there, it went crazy a little bit. For the next year and a half, it was back and forth, a lot of threats, starting to kill you. If you don't come back, starting to kill your kids, those different things. Like it was it was the average story where you go back and forth. Most victims go back at least around 7 times. And I would say I was just about at that same point.
Wow.
Until the last time when it was like, oh, if I don't leave or I don't stay away, he's going to kill me either way. And so after that, it was stalking, physical stalking, as well as digital, hacking into, car, your phone. Again, cameras being installed in your homes. Moved a lot, trying to get away from this person, lived in safe houses. Basically from year 1 to when year 7 rolled around, it had completely destroyed me mentally. Also, physically, their scars, they're still here, but mentally, there was nothing left of me, as far as I couldn't give anymore. Every day being tormented, being watched, being listened to. And it was one of the things that just got carried every day, every year. It got worse, and you think, is this ever going to stop? And I didn't think it was going to stop. I honestly, at year 7, I was ready to give up and like end the game myself. And so, fortunately for me, when COVID rolled around, something changed, and things began to stop happening, and got less and less, and I started getting myself back. Plus, I had my kids at home with me during COVID. Something I've been not able to do because of the situation is spend a lot of time with my children and my family. And so it was a quicker healing process. I never thought I could even come back from where I was at. But by the end of the summer, that was in March. By the end of the summer, I was just revived. I mean, I thought, oh wow, I feel like 100%. I mean, it was a big difference. It wasn't 100%, but for me, it was amazing because I could at least breathe. I could go outside without fear of someone getting me when I was outside or attacking me. And so it was kind of an amazing thing that happened. By December, I was decided that I kind of wanted to do something. I wanted to give back. I wanted to help other people. And looking back, I knew if I'd only known a few things I could have made different choices. I mean, if I had known all these early signs, over the years, people tell you, oh, it is present, it's not present. And so what could I, I had there's things that could have happened differently, but they just not being educated, not knowing, not being exposed to it throughout my life. Sorry.
That's okay.
It was to me that was the key. If I just if I'd only known. And so in the beginning, I studied digital forensics because a lot of this was digital stalking, hacking, a lot of things, proving people, in the local small town don't have experts in digital forensics. And so I thought I'm going to help people because it's hard to be on the side where someone's like they don't really believe you because they think it's too crazy, it can't really happen. And so I did that for a couple of years, studied there, and then I realized that I had 12 phones easily that had been hacked or used and spied on, much less laptops, your car. And if you ask someone to get you, like you hire someone privately, it's $5,000-$10,000 per device because it takes a long time to get all that information off the device. So just through my studies, wow, I'm only really going to be able to have one victim, and most victims like myself are broke at some point because you've exhausted it, moving and staying away, and you can't keep a job, and there's lots of things that happen to you. So anyway, long story short, I had started talking to different people and organizations because I started volunteering for a local crisis line, and people were like, "Your story, that's how you're going to help people is sharing your story and let people relate, and that's how you can educate them and reach the masses, kind of thing." And so I did some podcasts and started talking and sharing the story, and realized that besides the fact that 1 in 3 women are going to experience violence in their lifetime, girls ages 16 to 24 experience violence at like the highest rate of any population. So kind of targeting going, in the beginning of your life, if you you're just starting to date and then you just have this thing happen to you. That's why I think to me, I'm like, it just happened and you kind of just got blown away. And then one day you see like a punch to your face and you realize, oh my gosh, I'm in an abusive relationship. But there was a lot of things leading up to that. If they just had a little bit of that knowledge, they have technically some life-saving information in their toolbox, and they can use throughout their life, staying away from toxic relationships or getting out early or leaving a toxic relationship.
Right.
And so, yeah, I try to talk to high schools, colleges. It's great information for anyone. If you're dating over 40, you just got divorced, you haven't been out there for a while. All this information is good for anybody in relationships, but giving people the opportunity to have a choice in their life and not just be blindsided by, an abuser or, get swept away and have your life destroyed because you don't always get to come back and, have a second chance at life. I don't know what would happen if it wouldn't just stopped eventually because I was ready to give in on that point.
So let's go back to the stopping part, because that was one thing real quick. I want to address that just to clarify, just to clear my own mind of if you're still safe. I mean, apparently you're still safe because you're on podcast, you've got a website. So were you able to press charges? Like how is this man still how is he not still doing stuff to you now that he knows that you're out there spreading around his dirty laundry? I mean, hopefully he's arrested, or I don't know. I mean, yeah, what's going on with it? Like, where's he at, and are you always safe?
Well, that's a good question. In the beginning, so COVID hit. A lot of that came back. I don't want to say anything bad about any country, but it was back China, Hong Kong area, and we'd spend a lot of time there. And after a few weeks of things stopping, I just thought, oh, he must be dead. That sounds terrible, but that's after years and years, you think it's never going to end, and something happens there. And so I don't know what happened to him. I had for a couple of years now thought he was just dead. I don't Google him. I don't speak his names. I don't do anything of that because he has so much listening devices, hacking kind of thing where he monitors that if someone searches his name. So I didn't look up for death certificates or prison, if we're where he was at that point. About 6 or 7 months ago, or maybe even a year ago, a friend's like, "What happened to him?" And I'm like, I think he's dead." And she's like, "Well, we checked his social media." I'm like, "Oh no, I don't go there," kind of thing.
That's even
And
worse. Yeah.
lo and behold, he's still kicking. He's somewhere out there, and I don't know if he moved
Onto
on with
another
some
victim, or
exactly like he found a new obsession kind of thing. What happened to him, or if he's out of the country kind of thing, can afford to keep monitoring me 24/7 and implementing these tactics all the time. But I just sometimes weird things happen to your devices, or it feels like something familiar that used to happen a lot, and I just like it's not happening. You can't mentally I have to pretend like it's whatever's happening, it's not happening anymore. Like your car is unlocked, but you're like, I'm sure I locked that.
yeah. Yeah,
This
yeah.
is not happening. He hasn't been here. It's not, just don't go to the worst part, because you know how easily you got torn down, and how low you were by that worry and the anxiety, and just being scared all the time. So at this point in time, it's just kind of keep myself safe as far as just not giving names out. Some people will figure it out eventually, but there was no ever he was arrested multiple times for violations, violence, all this stuff. And at one point, I got an unfortunate call. I was living in a safe house, and they said, "Wait, just couldn't find you to testify." I'm like, "You just called me right now." Well, we couldn't find you, and so we went ahead and dealt it down, and it would have been a third strike for him. So
Oh,
uh, they
oh.
they dealt it down and it didn't even include a DV.
And
Uh,
hopefully you're not in hopefully you're not in one of the southern weird shaped states that borders that's close to Cuba. I don't want to say the name of the state. Hopefully you're not there because they're horrible about this stuff. I've got a friend of mine in Florida who's dealt with a narcissistic ex-husband and the shit that he was pulling, and it's been 4 years and still nothing is done. You know,
yeah.
it's
Oh, it
crazy.
was years and years since it's actually some of the cases have been closed, but then because it was probation or probationary, like kind of whatever they dealt with him, I really
Yeah.
didn't care. I was so devastated by the time I got that news from them. Like I've been hiding and running and cooperating, and so he did something else, like stabbed someone in the eye, from like rental company, I thought. And they wanted to pull me back in. I said, I don't want to be pulled back in. Like, leave me alone. I don't want to be involved in the
Yep.
system
I don't
anymore,
want to be,
because
yeah, exactly.
even the
Well,
second person that destroyed me, you kind of thing,
no,
it wasn't satisfactory kind of
yeah.
experience.
So sorry that you had to go through all that. It's a great story in the fact that you got out of it and you stood strong. Now, so be it. That one of the good things that came from COVID is one of the things you talked to me about when we first met is what COVID saved your life, because it was literally the day before they shut things down when you were thinking drastic measures, if I remember right.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It was literally that night. I was talking to that drone saying goodbye. Like, game is over. I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
So
Yeah.
yay COVID for that, but for
Exactly. I know
saving
everyone. I hate saying
because
that because a lot of people had such
yeah,
terrible
yeah.
experiences,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
yeah,
it's one of those things where, COVID did open up this kind of communication and, made this so much more user friendly and meet people know how to use this type of communication. And my network has grown so much now that I've dove into online networking and,
yeah.
podcasting in general. The amount of in the last 45 days, the amount of opportunities from podcasting that has been presented to me has been life changing. And when I say life changing, I'm talking I've met some high level people who have been around some major things that are now folding me in as part of their team or part of their collaboration. So I am living.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
well,
awesome.
in that what I talked to you about earlier when I told you I went out to LA, just a little sidebar. LA, they made the decision on my personality for the character because they saw one of my podcasts. So,
Wow.
so I'm like, okay, so yeah, they heard my voice on my website, but then when they search my name, because you can find me everywhere, they
Right.
found my podcast. They're like, man, that's the charisma that this character has. So that's why we just went with you. We didn't even want an audition. So podcasting, is going to do wonderful things for all of us, and it's doing wonderful things for you, and it's doing wonderful things for the people that need your services. So real quick before we talk about your services and your entrepreneurial path with this horrific situation, horrific and earth-shattering. What did you do before? Like, what was your profession before you became, the dating and violence coach? So just real quick on that, like, were you a nurse? Were you, yeah, what did you do?
When I say I was upper kind of management deal, I'd say my last two major things. I was I was a conference planner and student activities coordinator for a college for 10 years. And so I worked with students. So I have a near and dear kind of thing to working with that age group, and did, programming there, mentoring the students. And then I worked for him, unfortunately, and I was doing international sales. And so I was the uh, chief information officer as well as the logistics coordinator for his company, which was an international company. And
Okay.
so, like, kind of that kind of thing, like running offices, managing people.
Okay.
That's kind of what I've did
So yeah, I
before.
mean that's actually like that's very honestly, it's very entrepreneurial what you were doing because you were planning all that stuff, and you have to be an entrepreneur to be creative inside of those worlds. So this seems like a natural flow into, wait a second, I know how to event plan, I know how to deal with corporations, I know how to talk to C-suite people, I know how to talk to the students, I know how to talk to the people that went through what I did. So it sounds to me like a very good natural progression from your original career. Unfortunately, this horrible incident happened to you for multiple years, and now you're on the backside of it going, wait a second, everything I knew from before and what I have in my wheelhouse can now be focused on dating tips by Meg. So tell us
Yeah.
about that path. When was the aha moment that you said, I'm going to make a business out of this and go all in?
Yeah, I would say late 2021,
Okay.
early 2022,
So
kind of it made a transition. First, it was going to be just helping somebody, like being that private company that helps, reached out in a small town to help people who are experiencing that. And so that was the initial how I'm going to help people. I just knew I couldn't let this happen over and over to people and be so devastated. Like my life was torn apart. And so then it was just more of people getting feedback from people like yourself who were like, wow, your story is impactful. You should share your story. This is how you're going to like reach people. And the more I shared my story, I shared it on Facebook one point when I was involved in the relationship, and the outpouring of people and the people who were saying that this has happened to them. This would be amazing work. And I was talking about, I need prevention. I need people to know, just know some signs. You can get this basic information. It could save your life, and it could save the path that you're on. Because it takes you down. But it just, yeah, I had never seen myself as a speaker. My wildest dreams, I was writing a speech the other day. My wildest dreams was, I never imagined being a speaker. Speech class, I was sweating behind my knees kind of person. And so but there's this deep passion. It was like, I've got to help people, and I've got to get this information out. I've got to reach more people and like lower these statistics. And so that's kind of where, some advice from other people, like, read your book. It's a big endeavor. And so speaking, talking to people, sharing your voice, being able to tell stories. There's lots of stories, unfortunately, that went along with this experience. But yeah, and it started coming together and getting advice from people, and doing some workshops and thinking, this is the path. And I could feel it in my, kind of feel it in my gut that this is the way you're going to go. And yeah, having the background in event planning and working with the college students, it was like I love doing all that stuff. I love being organized. I love education. I've always been a lifelong learner. I mean, I've done over and over different degrees just because I love to learn. And this has been no different. It's been one of those things every day you get passionate and like learn something more, and then wanting to share it with people and like, okay, this is valuable information. And it makes me feel good. I help people, and you can make a good living at it as well. So that's probably the least important, because, but of course it matters.
and
You can be
I
successful
struggle.
if you're not successful. So
Well, I struggle, I mean, everybody who's watched my podcast, and if this is the first time you've watched the Ignition Path podcast, don't forget, shameless plug, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, share this information with someone you may think need to know this. But I had the same struggle with my original business. So I know I spoke with you in the beginning, and when we first had our meeting, that I'm a first responder. I'm a paramedic who's gone through some mental health issues, and I got on the backside of the mental health issues, and it was a blind side. It was 20 years into my healthcare career that I was like literally like, boom, this major issue hit me in the side of my brain, and I could not function. And I got help right away. Like I'd have no problem with raising my hand with
right.
anything. When my marriage was in disarray, I raised my hand. Hey, I can't handle this. So I raised my hand. I got some help. I came on the backside of it. I'm in a better place. And once I was in a better place, I had that notion of, wait a second, I'm an educator. I'm a public speaker per se. I was in medical sales, so I'm a salesman slash I can talk in front. I'm an extrovert, as I like to call it. But I struggled with the fact that I was making something to help people on the mental health side of things as first responders, and I'm like trying to make money at it. And I'm like, oh my God. And it was like, it was weighing on me, and that was stressing me out. I'm like, wait a second, why am I, yes, I'm doing this to help other first responders, but yes, I'm doing it to support my retirement, because I'm not that far away from retirement, right?
Right.
And it was one of those things where I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And I finally talked to somebody who has been a first responder, who created a financial process, a financial product that helps first responders, and he monetizes the crap out of it, right? He makes good money, but he's also servicing. So, and then I flash back to the Tony Robbins discussions and the Dean Graziosi discussions that I've heard, and they're like, listen, if you're offering a service that saves lives, there is no reason. It is a disservice to share it with people and to let them know that, hey, this is what I do and I get paid for it because I'm an expert in this field and I can help you. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow. It's almost
It
gone.
is.
It's almost gone. It's not all the way gone. I still
You
little
know,
that weird feeling, and you know what I'm talking about, that weird feeling of, wait a second, I'm making money out of my tragedy or my downfall or other people's possible tragedies or existing tragedies. I'm going to charge them for these services. Well, but if people get charged to go get their broken leg fixed, I'm like
right,
how
right,
different is that than getting your life saved by someone who's been there and can empathize with you and understand what you're going through and be that thing to lean on, and speed up the process where it took you years to learn, where you
right,
have this program where you can speed up their process, or even better, pre-educate on the younger group and get them to know the signs early on. And that's where my big focus is now. It's like, I want to go into schools and teach them, hey, when you're about 15 years into your career, you're going to have seen a lot of crap. And as you go through those years, you're going to know how to deal with this because you're now taught something that I was never taught 25 years ago for myself. So,
right.
so
Oh
yeah,
yeah, I think just the information. Yeah, it's like I say, 30 minutes can save your life. It's a tool that you'll use forever. It's not something and it doesn't relate to anybody, because even if you're not dating, there are abusive relationships out there. For friendships. This is information you can use of this, but particularly because the statistics. You want to give you the best shot. I don't want to see your life destroyed. Or you could be going, you could be the strongest person, be on this path and rising fast, and everything's going for you, and you have the wrong relationship and it's toxic, and it rocks your world, and sometimes you don't get to come back from that. And
yeah.
so I don't want to see young people just struggling and not being able to do that. Actually, anybody. I don't want to see anybody going through this. So getting the information out there is so important to me, and it makes it's like when I see someone click, or someone who's been in it, and they're like, I didn't realize that what was happening. Or I talk to people who I used to go to high school with and say, where were you at when I was in high school? Because I was in an abusive relationship. And no one talked about it back then. It was a
Yeah. Oh
secret
yeah.
kind of thing.
Oh
So
yeah. Same
getting the
thing.
conversations out there, people have
Yeah.
been talking about it too. So yeah, definitely. There's
So
a lot of perks to the service.
right, exactly. When you mentioned, the stuff a couple seconds ago, you mentioned, finding those things. So share a little bit about how to find your services, what you offer, free consultation if that's part of it, or an ebook that you have. Like, go ahead and share all the stuff about your business where people can reach out to you and get this sort of help, or get these speaking engagements where you can come in and speak on behalf of abused women, because you have been. I mean, it's probably the same. Is it the same category as once an abused woman, you're always an abused woman? But when like alcoholism, you're healed and you're recovered, but it's not like you don't forget that time in your life and you have to deal with
Right.
it on a daily basis. So when it
Yeah.
comes to that, share with us and the audience and the listeners for the Ignition Path podcast how to get a hold of you and reach out to you and find you.
All right. So I have a website. Everything that comes around is by the name of my company. It's Dating Tips with an S by Meg. And the website's datingtipsbymeg.com. I have the email is datingtipsbymeg@gmail.com. And then as our social media, have Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, where I share lots of tips, different information, videos, trying to get people. If you're out there and you're wondering some of these things, like, oh, that isn't okay, kind of thing. So you can reach out through me through all those different avenues. My phone number is also on the website. Give me a call. I have many avenues you can get a hold of me. If you, right, Kyle, you have the same thing where you're checking all these different ways because you're giving people a lot of avenues to connect with you. So you're always making sure you're kind of keeping up on,
Yeah.
oh, I'm easy to get a hold of. You want to be easy to get a hold of. So that's how you can get a hold of me. Whatever's easiest for you, and then the phone number is as a mobile number, so you can text me if that's easier. Sometimes for me, it's like making a call. it's
Yeah.
hard, but yeah, reach out. There's an inquiry form on my website as well. You can set up a free consultation, talk about what your needs are. I do everything with as far as walking people because I work on two different crisis lines. So I do a lot of victim response and helping people. You guide them. You don't save them. You guide them. Help them make their own decisions. So it's something you can kind of do, and it's nice to have that coach. If you're not working with an advocate, which I highly recommend if you're in the situation, but if you're not, something you can do is work with someone else who can build your safety plan. Help you stay safe, help you navigate the next step, or just even be an ear for you. But I also offer stuff as far as looking at digital stalking, how do I stay safe online, and then of course speaking engagements, coming in and talking about anything subject wise, for prevention and just recognizing the early signs to online dating safety, dating after 40, staying safe, being happy. For me, it's all about it can happen any time in your lifetime. So, violence doesn't discriminate. It affects all ages, men and women. If the number gets called out at 1 in 3, it's an unfortunate thing. But if you have a little knowledge, or if you just start going through it, and someone that you can say, yes, this is the signs, then you can get out early and you can prevent like every escalation stuff. So I believe in the information and just educating and getting people to talk about things, getting the conversation started. And that's somewhat by sharing my story. Kind of people are talking afterwards, like, "What's wow, that was weird. That was a lot." And she came out the other side, and so letting people know that you're not alone as well, and there's help out there for you. You know,
Exactly. Well, all of that stuff, of course, will be in the show notes. All of her social medias, she's going to provide me with all of that when she sends me her headshot and her bio and all that good stuff. So all that stuff will be in the show notes. So if you're not in a place where hopefully you're listening in your car, hopefully that's always a good time to listen to podcast but make sure that you know that in the show notes, all that information is going to be there. So, well, Meg,
thanks.
thank you so much for coming on. It's a devastating story. I want this story, we want our stories of our struggles to help other people to one stop them, hopefully help them from a problem, and like you said, just educate the younger ones on knowing that stuff. So even if it's something like when you're listening to this and you may not be in an abusive relationship, but you want this information for yourself or your children, don't hesitate, because she also has programs which she goes out and teaches young children and young women and men, I'm sure young men as well.
Yep.
I mean, it goes both ways. I know the numbers are grossly the wrong way. I don't. Being a man, I've been humbled in my own life and had friends of mine who've gone through similar paths as you, and and I'm in a relationship who I've gotten angry with before, and she's gotten angry with me before, and it's one of those things, and it's just you if you're a man out there, just know that it is hard for us to control our anger. It is hard for us as a man to, and this is just being bluntly honest, check yourself before you wreck yourself, in my opinion. Like, be
Right.
humble enough to look inside yourself and realize, hey, am I screwing up my relationship? And if you're not able to do that, you know, Meg is going to be on the backside teaching everybody before they get to you that they're going to
Right.
learn how to get out. So
Right. Yeah. The one other part I always forget to kind of mention is doing that parenting talk, like doing workshops with parents and teaching them how to talk to your kids about healthy relationships, what's not a healthy relationship, and being able to have a conversation so your child's not going through it alone, because so many people go through it alone. And so again, like getting people to talk about it is a big deal. And then of course, just being able to keep having those conversations, people spreading the word, people talking about it, so it's not a dark subject. Definitely helps the cause and helps victims.
yeah.
So
All right. Well, thank you so much, Meg, for coming on the Ignition Path podcast. Like I said, I saw you on one of my other podcast I was on. I was watching one of his episodes that was live, and I sat there and just got totally engulfed in your story, and I just knew that I had to have you on my podcast because you had made it into a business, not because I didn't want to share your information, because I definitely want to make sure that people are aware of this. But my platform's getting bigger and bigger, and that's what my goal is, and more people will hopefully be able to see this, and you'll, once I'm done, I give you all my stuff, all the things that my program makes for you, so you can share it on your socials, and people will hopefully find you through this and reach out to you. And that's one thing I know that Meg and I have one common, probably many common suggestions, but if you have one ounce of I need to talk to Meg, just do it. Don't
Good.
don't think about it. Don't put it
Right.
off. Don't put it off. Just do it. Same thing when I reached out for help on my mental health day when I crashed the day I came back from my run, or the morning I got off of duty and everything came down on me. I instantly was like, oh crap, I got to call my mentor. And I called my mentor, and she was at my house within 45 minutes and talked me down. Right.
Be
So,
proactive. It's your life. You're worth it.
oh,
Definitely.
absolutely. But that if that's one thing that you listen that you if you heard the concept of this podcast today, and then there's one other thing you take away from this is if you feel like you need this help, just full stop right there, make that your aha moment, and get a hold of
Right.
Meg.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that come into just feeling. Like when you're feeling something, think about think about it and react to it. Like don't give an excuse to it. Like something's not right, and
Yep.
you're feeling that. It's
Math
a
back.
feeling, and so yeah, reach out. I'd love to talk to you. Again, there's lots of different avenues, so whatever's convenient. But I love to help and see what we can do to help each other.
All right. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Meg. We'll go ahead and sign off now. And everybody that's listening, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Once again, I have a feeling that everybody listening to this will know at least someone that needs this information. Please, please, please hit that share button and forward this episode to them and just say, hey, I heard some stuff today I think you need to know, and just give them the episode. So once again, thanks for tuning in to the Ignition Path podcast, everybody. And Meg, thank you so much for being my guest today. And we'll be talking
Thank
real
you,
soon.
Kyle. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for helping me share the message and spread the word.
Sure thing. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Ignition Path, fueling the entrepreneurial fire.